What is the weirdest thing that someone you know does to save money? My wife always talks about her great-grandfather's frugality. He hand-built most of their furniture, had a black and white TV in the 90s, and drank Sam's Choice beer. The neighbors had a dispute with him concerning the overhang of his outside shed. It apparently was too close to their property line. So this rickety old man filled his Sam's Choice beer cans with homemade concrete, somehow raised the entire shed by himself, and rolled it on the cans 6 inches away from their property. Entire endeavor cost about $8. This man was slick. Weird thing is, he had money. Lots of money. He was an engineer for NASA during the Gemini Apollo missions. I guess doing it right for as cheap as possible was ingrained in him. He died before I met my wife. He would have been fun to talk to. When my grandpa was alive, he griped at my dad for leaving the numlock on the keyboard because it was wasting electricity. My dad gave him a nickel and was like, there, that just covered the next 2 years. Wow, he overpaid. My grandpa takes everything from restaurants he can get his hands on. Crackers, mints, ketchup packets, napkins. Not like one, like a lot. It's average old people mentality. They will take everything that's available. In Canada we no longer have the penny, so when your total comes to 2.33 it rounds up to 2.35, or 2.32 would round down to 2.30. Whenever a friend of mine makes a purchase he waits to see the total. If it's going to round down he pays in cash, but if it's going to round up he pays with card since the machine can actually charge you the correct amount. He saves pennies a day. They offer to go on a lunch run for everyone in the office. The place they go to has these punch this card 5 times get a free lunch. He's basically got to get 5 people lunch and his is free. All he has to do is take a 10-minute walk. Pretty smart if you ask me. In college I worked as a barista and we threw out a ton of pastries, bagels and sandwiches. The owner was very clear that we could not take anything out of the case and bring it home, but there was nothing stopping us from digging through the garbage. So at closing time we would take out the day's trash, then divvy up the food to be thrown away, put them in small bags, gently set them inside the clean trash bag for a second, then take it out and go home. Free food loophole. This was in the mid-90s, but I worked with a guy who knew the throw-out routines of several close-by fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Sklozki's, etc. Back then, McDonald's would just make a ton of everything, put them under a heat lamp, and they would just get picked up as people ordered them. Items had a fairly short shelf life, so they would get tossed. He said most of the time they would all go in the same trash bag, everything in their individual wrappers. He somehow knew which bags were which and would bring home a big bag of Big Macs, quarter pounders, and whatnot. I took his advice and went to Sklozki's right after closing. I opened their dumpster and, sure enough, there was a big garbage bag full of their fresh made bread and nothing else. I took that bag home, froze most of it, and ate for a year on Sklozki's bread. That was my only time dumpster diving, but the guy was definitely onto something. That didn't include weight management. I used to work at a pizza joint, and ever so often someone would call in a pizza for pickup and never come to get it. When that happened, the employees were able to take it home. Me and my then roommates, being the shitheads we were, would call in an order that would never get picked up and I'd just bring it home. My dad refuses to buy drinking glasses. Instead, he will buy the cheapest spaghetti and Alfredo sauces that come in glass jars. Ragu, I'm looking at you, use the sauce, and save the jar. He cleans the jars, removes the label, and voila, new drinking glasses. That's actually tolerable. Not really a super bad idea either. It was me. When McDonald's used to give those stickers out with their coffee, after you filled one up with 4 stickers you could get a free coffee. I worked the recycle truck and would stockpile every cup I'd find working a suburb. Free mocha fraps for months on end. Whole Foods take 10c off your bill for every bag you bring with you. If you bring 2 bags, they'll give you 20c, although everything you bought could easily fit in 1 bag. The easiest way to get your bill from $168.40 to $168.20. Whoa, 1 bunch of celery in each bag. Big spender. My friend's dad would make the family collect the water you run in the shower before it heats up. He would then use that water to water his yard. In high school, I worked at a pizza place that would clean the refrigerator on Thursday nights for a supply shipment Friday mornings. Anything in the refrigerator that was fresh, onions, tomatoes, etc., or not frozen anymore, meats, certain sauces, dough, etc., were to be scrapped. One of the managers that closed on Thursday nights would, instead of throwing out all this food, have us make whatever we wanted to take home. After 2 weeks of working the closing Thursday shift, the manager requested I help out permanently on Thursdays. We would clean the restaurant and then make whatever we wanted, then do the dishes. I would generally take home 10 pizzas or so to my mom and sisters. I grew up pretty poor, so pizza was a treat, and have dozens of hot wings. Honestly, working in a restaurant that provides you extra food is the best for someone who is living on a budget. I work part-time as a server in IHOP and I work there 3 times a week. I don't eat much, so when we get food for lunch or dinner, I'd have another meal prepared for when I got home. I also get to have as much salads as I want, so I save a lot on food. In writing this question, I didn't have a response, but reading another comment sparked my memory. My friend's family used to struggle over dishwashing duties. The parents would frequently get mad at the kids for leaving their dishes in the sink and not emptying the dishwasher. One day, I was at their house with all the kids home, and when we left the dishes in the sink, the parents blew up. It was time for a family meeting. Not sure where to go, I awkwardly sat in the next room, but could still hear the meeting conversation. After a few minutes of bickering, it turned out that the reason the kids unload the dishwasher was that they didn't know if it was clean or dirty was because the mom would always turn off the clean LED light on the dishwasher to save energy. When I heard that, I just burst out laughing, which relieved the family tension, and the mom realized the ridiculousness of her statement. No more turning off the LED unless you empty the dishwasher. Problem solved. I know a lady who keeps on collecting those small ketchup sachets you get for free at food joints. She is known to have collected up to a kilo of ketchup in a day in her handbag from all the different food joints in the city. Later she fills up small bottles and sells it as her homemade ketchup to unsuspecting people. Sorry, English not first language. I know a bunch of people that will burn a gallon of gas driving across town to get the cheapest gas. Come on man, it's like 3 cents cheaper and you have a 12-gallon tank. A large catfish in the only bathtub of my Vietnamese friend's house. He told me they fatten them and purify them for a few days before eating it by feeding it a special diet. Oh, and they showered with it. I do this, but with a kiddie pool. Catfish is really good once you get all the nasty river water out of its system. Takes about 2 weeks. I just feed them Dollar Tree hot dogs. Guy joined our unit in the army stationed in Germany over a decade ago. Only eats in DFAC dining facilities. Only wears PT uniform off duty. Owns only a couple other pieces of clothing. Buys nothing. Even puts socks on layaway at the PX. We invited him to the clubs and he would only go if we paid for everything. Didn't drink though. Only water. Middle of a deployment and he's about to end of term of service equals leave army. He only had a 2-year contract. Ships back to Germany before flying back home to San Francisco. Buys a 3 Series BMW for cash before going home. You think you have discipline? This guy was on a different level. I had a roommate in college with a backup battery. He would go to the library and charge that thing all day, then use that to power his PC at night. I managed the bills in the house and I noticed $8.20 monthly reduction in electricity once he started doing that. I always aim to have my phone, laptop, tablet, portable charger at full battery when I leave uni. Even if it only saves me pennies, I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of tuition fees. Took the kiddos trick-or-treating this past Halloween. One house had a bowl on the porch that only had restaurant peppermints and fortune cookies. This one is straight ghetto LOL. Someone I know bought a microwave. Knowing the store has a 90-day return policy, they return the microwave for a new one every 89 days, citing a new problem and often making up a problem of their own. They've never had to replace a microwave and are always at the pinnacle of microwave technology. Pinnacle of microwave technology, the dream. 1. My great-grandfather bought insanely cheap cigars and then cut them open for chewing tobacco. 2. 10 years ago, he lost his leg to something like gangrene because he was too cheap to go to the doctor. After they took his leg off, below the knee, he opted out of the prosthetic. It would have cost him some money. I don't know how much, but anything over $20 would be too much, and carved himself a peg leg. 3. He drank one Ham's Gold beer a day. That was his beer because he got 12 packs for $2 at a drugstore by his house. The cheapest beer available. A friend of mine had converted her loft space into a spare room, which her ex-boyfriend moved into after they split up. They were not living together prior to the split. I always found that a bit weird because he had to go into her bedroom and pull down the loft ladder to access his own room. It must have been awkward when they had new boyfriends, girlfriends staying over. No amount of savings is worth this. I cut my own hair. I haven't gotten a haircut from a barber in 3-4 years. At first it was because I could never find a decent barber, but nowadays, it's easier for me to take care of it. Same here, but I shave my head, so it doesn't really count. I should probably invest in a better electric razor, though, this one is a bit crap. New husband grew up very poor and his dad won't use air conditioning. Their house is hot as balls in the summer. He tried doing that with our house, but my pregnant self put a stop to that real quick. Over Thanksgiving, we found out my wife was pregnant. I feel like when summer rolls around, the house is going to be an ice box. Back in college, I had an acquaintance who was the king of dipping out of a bill. He would pay the first round of the night because he knew everyone would remember it and it was usually the cheapest college bar beers. Then he would not even bother to chip in the rest of the night. The worst was dinner tabs. He would all of a sudden get sleepy, pretending to be too tipsy, right before the bill was coming and put his head down when it showed up. He would then magically wake up and be perfectly fine after the rest of us split it up. Funny thing is he was so smooth at this that most people never even noticed, but I did. I remember you, Jack. Don't be like Jack. Not actually saving money, but simply wasting energy. My grandma would collect the cold water from the hot tap, then reheat it up on the stove, to dump back into the sink to wash the dishes by hand before putting them into the dishwasher to run. What? Just put them in the fricking dishwasher. Our old office admin would order much more food than needed for weekly office functions, like order 16 heads when only 8 were booked. She took the rest home and that was her food for a few days. Her boss didn't care, but Grandboss tried to put a stop to it when he found out. She did it again the very next function. Grandboss checked up and boom, gone. Had a friend who would camp out behind the Goodwill Salvation Army, and when people showed up to drop off donations, would walk up to the car and ask if they wouldn't mind if he looked through what they had first. He was upfront about it, and most people seemed to be okay letting him. At least it's all getting used. That's the usual mentality for people donating to those kinds of places, I think. My dad had a friend that only uses one light bulb at a time. He would unscrew it and take it with him into the next room. His time must be worthless. My nana, if you bring a load of fresh bakery bread along for lunch, we'll put it into her deep freezer and pull out one from the Cold War and defrost it, and pretend she didn't do it. You can tell the difference, nana. It's still frozen in the middle. My grandparent did the same thing. Always wonder what was the freaking point. You always ate crappy bread. My father, at the rare occasion that he would have to stay at a motel, would bring with him burnt out light globes from home, and on leaving, swap the burnt globes with the working ones in the room. He would even have the foresight to bring both screw and bayonet types. Such was his level of depravity. I am impressed by this one. An older cousin of mine is renovating an old house he bought from his grandfather. He had to haul a 600 kilogram diesel tank for heating, with remaining diesel out of the house, and put it up for a giveaway. A farmer saw an ad for it and went over with his tractor to pick it up with suction equipment and a few empty barrels. The guy has been going around at it for at least a decade, just collecting diesel from old tanks like that. Never had to buy diesel in that long. I'd love to see the condition of his fuel system. I had an English teacher in high school for first period one semester and then last period the next semester. During first period I noticed that she always adjusted the time on the clock. Basic single battery analog clock. What I didn't know until next semester was that she removed the battery in the evening. When I asked her about it, she told me that she had to supply her own batteries and that she wasn't going to waste them on being on all night, so she reset it every day. Those clocks take like 1-2 batteries a year. Over the course of her 30-year career, she saved $20 maximum for all that inconvenience. Dang, I have a lot of these. I think the funniest was my friend would bring Tupperware containers with him to the dining hall. He would discreetly put enough random food in each container for his lunch and dinner. The worst part was he didn't even have a dining hall food plan. He would ask other people to swipe him in. Most dining hall plans came with weekly guest passes to swipe people in that weren't from our campus. Then just put all this other food in the Tupperware containers for later that day. Meanwhile, my campus charges 2 swipes if you plan of eating in and taking a to-go box cause you didn't finish your meal. My ex-father-in-law reuses nails in his construction projects. He collects old boards with nails in them, pulls the nails out, and saves them in a bucket. Then he uses them in new projects, no matter how rusty they are. Sometimes he has to spend considerable time straightening them out. The resulting projects are usually a disaster. He's saved a few tens of dollars over the decades, and wasted hundreds of weekends and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on materials and wrecked, failed projects in the process. My grandfather used to do this, suspecting it would lead to more hoarding habits. Dad bought him 10,000 nails. I have a friend who makes 6 figures. For Christmas she asks for hand soap from Bath and Body Works. It is for her guest bathroom so she doesn't have to buy the soap herself. She thinks fancy soap is a waste of money, but she still wants to have it in her guest bathroom. I mean, that would be the kind of thing I ask for as a gift. Something I like to have, but not enough to pay for it myself. California is in the process of mandating temporary tags because people, especially Steve Jobs, took advantage of a loophole where a new car wasn't required to have any kind of tags for 6 months. People used it to their advantage so they could avoid paying tolls and tickets. Steve Jobs was the best known user of this exploit. He leased his cars, and he'd get a new one every 6 months, so he could drive like crap, park illegally, and skip the tolls. He ended up buying the last one he leased. The model was facelifted for 2009, so I guess he didn't want that one, and Google Maps shows that it has a rear tag, nothing on the front. However, so he was no longer trying to avoid anything, and probably drove parked normally because he would be able to suffer from the consequences. The last time it was captured on Google Maps was in 2013 however, so I'm not sure what his family ended up doing with it. I guess either one of his kids took it, or it was sold. In 2012, it was just left to sit according to some news reports. But in the 2013 Street View, you could see that the brake lights are on and a blurred out person sitting inside when the Google car was passing by. My co-worker arrives at 7:45 am every day instead of 9 am so he can avoid paying $1.50 on a toll road by driving on side streets when there's no traffic. $300 a year-ish. This is the least cheapskate thing in this thread, even though having to wake up that early is probably not worth it. I just left my apartment and now I'm living in my Jeep. I make about 1k a week and saving nearly 1.5k a month now. Between gas for commuting, time wasted commuting, electricity bill, trash, rent, etc. I go to the gym every day and shower, shave, brush my teeth there. My work has a fridge so I keep a lot of food in it. I'm saving up for a house. Should be about 3 months of this. My parents take Splendor from wherever they give them out for free so they don't have to buy a box, and I steal it from them. Oh man. My uncle and aunt told us their big money saving idea last Christmas, with all the family listening. They live in sight of Kings Island around Cincinnati with their 3 kiddos. You can see the tops of roller coasters from their front yard. Side note, Kings Island is a pretty legit amusement park. Ohio in general is thick with roller coasters, something that surprised me. My uncle makes good money in sales. Large newer 2-story brick house, newish SUV in each garage stall, etc. Apparently Kings Island offers meal plans in conjunction with the season passes that allow you unlimited entrance during the months of operation. Taking this to the extreme, my uncle figured out that if they ate X number of times per week, Each meal would wind up being less than $3. They would eat there upwards of 10 times per 7 days. I am all for being frugal, but then he let slip that sometimes they would take the family to eat lunch. Then they would walk around or read books. Having season passes year after year burns all the joviality out of riding rides again and again, until it was time to eat supper, and then they'd go home. It became natural for their family of 5 to go to an amusement park to eat twice while never riding a ride. I had a few Christmas cocktails and my incredulity might have been a little too obvious. Somebody needed to point out how ridiculous this scheme was. I'll have 3 cousins who grew up thinking this was normal. I witnessed this confession from one of my friend. I only go to bathroom while I am at work, so I can save money for my water bill for the month. Sometime it gets uncomfortable but it's worth it. Boss makes a buck, I make a dime. This is why poop on company time. There's that extreme cheapskate show or whatever where one lady brings her clothes into the shower and leaves them by the drain. That way when she showers the soap runs off into the clothes and she then hangs them to dry. Another guy buys toilet paper but makes sure to pull the ply apart so he gets 2 pieces per square. My mom saves containers from yogurt to keep food in. I secretly throw them in the recycle because we run out of cabinet space and we already have real containers. A coworker of mine tries to keep his lunch at $1 every day. The other day he was eating a bag of corn. That's all he brought. For whatever reason my mom-in-law has an issue with pizza. No matter the number of people in our group, she always orders 1 large pizza. 2 people, large pizza. 6 people, large pizza. It's so weird. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.